Zig coming in on the top. Today on the show, we have Corey Ledet, accordion player, singer-songwriter, specializing in the styles of Zydeco music. Corey has a profound recorded career already with 15 studio albums, his newest being Médikamen, his first record fully in Cory, a Louisiana Creole language, that of which his ancestors spoke. And his family musically is crazy as far as how deep his family's roots get into jazz, bebop, blues, and like we get into that in that conversation. Like members of his family played with Louis Armstrong, B.B. King, just to name a few. We're gonna listen to a tune off Médikamen. This is the track Two Step. Médikamen's album now on all streaming platforms. Check it out. This was a fun conversation. Zydeco music's really cool. It's really fun. There's a lot to it. And with Corey's family having so many different roots in all these different types of music, like blues and bebop, we really get into it. Before we get to that conversation, if you hear what you like, if you can like, rate your review, subscribe to the podcast and any of the podcast platforms, it helps me keep talking to cool guests like Cory. That being said, without further ado, this is my chat with Cory. Awesome. Well, to get into it, I wanted to ask you about your grandfather.
Okay.
If you can tell me a little bit about his musical journey.
Yeah. So my grandfather, which is my dad's dad, I never got a chance to meet him because he passed in 1978, and I wasn't born until 1981, so I just missed him. But he was a drummer. He was a musician. And he was born in 1910, so like right around like the 20s and 30s, he was playing jazz music at the time in the area where they were from. It's a small town called Parks, Louisiana, in between Breaux Bridge and St. Martinville, Louisiana. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that area, but the town was called Parks, Louisiana, and St. Martin Parish. It's the parish. They don't have counties here; they have parishes. So so he played jazz music. His father, my great grandfather, played jazz and ragtime music, like the kind of music that like from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And so my grandfather was started out with that, and he was in several different jazz bands in the area with his cousins, our cousins, the Poches, because his mother was originally a Poche. So with his cousins, they had several different jazz bands in the area. And then later on, when Clifton Chenier started coming out, with his Zydeco style music, some kind of way they linked up and they started playing music together. My grandfather and Clifton Chenier, and they was, playing Zydeco. And then as Clifton got bigger and bigger, he started moving around and traveling and touring. And my grandfather was more of a homebody, so he didn't want to do that. So he ended up playing drums with a couple other Zydeco bands like Rockin' Doopsie when he was first coming out, and Furnace Arsenal when he was first coming out, and stuff like that. So that's pretty much what I know of my grandfather. Like I said, I didn't get a chance to meet him. I wish I did. I wish I had video or audio or something on him, but we don't have that. So that's pretty much his story. He played music most of his life, but he always did have a regular job as well, my dad said. But that's the story of my grandfather.
That's a pretty epic family story with music. Like
yeah. And that's just with him, with his story. His father, my great grandfather, like I say, he played the upright bass, and he played. We just found out he played with Bunk Johnson.
Wow.
Yeah, there's actually a book that we found. It's an old book, and my friend Louis Michel found it, and it says all this in this book. When he found it, he called me up. He said, "Hey, I recognize some names. Do you know these names?" So I went by and I started reading. I was like, "Yeah, this is like all my family, all the Days, all the Poches, the Wilts, the Charles, all these guys. That's all people in and around the Parks area. It's all my family." And I was like, "Wow, that's incredible." So my family is documented from playing music and even early jazz music all the way back, like from the late 1800s, early 1900s.
That's so to get like a because I talked with Louis a couple weeks ago, and like did you like was stories like circling around your family of all this, and like but there was no like you guys didn't have like something written down like in
Yeah,
yeah
yeah. So basically, I always knew I was from a musical family because they talk about it, but my family is so nonchalant. You know what I'm saying? They're like,
yeah
oh yeah, our cousins did this and did that. You know, it was like no sweat to them. But I'm like, when I'm hearing these stories, I'm like, how can you guys like, you know what I'm saying? Which I guess is cool. You know, everybody's kind of down to earth like that. You know.
yeah
But I'm like, wow, these stories are incredible. Like, we had a cousin. He was a Poche, Harold Poche Jr.,
mhm.
and he played drums with Ike and Tina Turner.
Wow
And then he also moved on. He played with Bobby Blue Bland.
yeah
His brother John Poche, our other cousin, he played keyboards with B.B. King. Our other cousin Hippolyte Charles, they call him H.P. Charles. He played cornet with Louis Armstrong.
wow
So, and I'm
oh
hearing
my god yeah
I'm hearing all these stories, and everybody like, oh yeah, yeah, he played with Louis Armstrong. He used to come by the house and drink coffee. I'm like, what? How are y'all like so down to earth with all these stories? Which I guess is cool in a sense, you know.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, because I mean, they're legends, but they're also people, you know, and
Yeah,
that's so cool to like everyone in your family was like, ah, Louis Armstrong, he was coming over all the time for coffee. He kept forgetting creamer or
yeah,
whatever. I don't
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's how they told these stories. I'm like, what?
know. Like growing up, I guess. Until you kind of like see these people like BB King and Louis Armstrong and like these names where you see their name and like where they fit in musical history, like then like were you always kind of aware of like how like big these people were, or did you find yourself being like, oh, that guy as well?
At, at first, yeah, because like I said, it was just so nonchalant. When I was young, I was like, oh, okay, so our cousin played with so and so and this and that. But as I got older and fell in love with music and got deeper and deeper in music, that's when I like started to get starstruck. I'm like, are you telling me that our cousin played with so and so used to come by the house to pick him up and drop him off? And are you telling me? And like, yeah, it was no problem. I'm like, damn, okay.
That's crazy. BB King dropped me off. Like,
Yeah.
oh wow. Like I guess so after kind of like gaining perspective and going on your own musical journey and seeing where these names fit, like were you like close to your cousins?
Yeah, well, most of them were way older than me. They was kind of like in my dad's generation and even, before his generation. So by the time I came around, a lot of them had already passed on. Either passed on or just retired from music altogether.
Gotcha.
So, but still, just to hear these stories and to know, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's still crazy.
Well, I mean that like to I think every creative person has this thing within them. They're like, I got this thing to share and get out into the ether and like do my own thing, but like
Yeah.
to know that it runs in your family successfully along the side of legends is even more of that calling, I would imagine.
Exactly, and it makes sense. That's why I love music so much, and all types of music, not just Zydeco. I mean, Zydeco is what I'm known for, but I love jazz music, especially now knowing that I have blood, that did the early jazz when jazz music was just being basically developed. You know what I'm saying? So I'm liking jazz music. I like all music. It's a gift and a curse at the same time. It's hard to find music that I would not like. It has to be pretty bad for me not to like it, and then I still might find something in it I like.
Well, I think that's the way. There's always some nugget of a chord progression, of a melodic phrase, of a weird lyric, or of something
Yeah,
that everything has. And like, it's interesting with like Zydeco music. I feel like that's kind of like the beginner's book to philosophy in that sense, of that sense, because there's so much already entwined within it,
Absolutely.
style wise. Now you started playing drums, right?
Yeah, so I started off on drums, and how that happened was my dad had my grandfather's drums in the garage for a while, and just one day, and I passed by it, all the time, but one day I just passed by and I looked at, and I took a good look at it, and I was like, I was asking him, what is this? And he was like, that's your grandfather's drums. Those are drums. So then he pulled them out and he kind of set them up and kind of was hitting on them, because my dad plays drums too. So then I started kind of messing around with it. And, as a kid, you're hitting the drum. I mean, what fun is that? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You're a kid, you get to make a bunch of noise. So then eventually, he ended up getting me my own drum set, because, of course, my grandfather's was an old set. So we didn't want to, mess it up or destroy it any more than what it already was. So got a real drum set, started off practicing in the garage, and then we ended up bringing the drums in the house, because my mom didn't want me to disturb the neighbors, because I was always in there just hitting snares and crash cymbals and stuff. So we moved the drums in the house, started playing the drums in the house, and then eventually moved on to accordion. But at the same time, when I was kind of messing with the accordion, I ended up getting my first musical job with Wilbur Thibodeau and the Zydeco Rascals. They was based out of Houston, Texas, but he originally was from Opelousas, Louisiana. And then I got a job playing drums with him on the weekend, and I did that for maybe about 5 or 6 years. And I learned a lot of stuff from him just by being on stage, like stage presence, and being able to read your crowd, and being able to dress properly when you're on stage, just all that kind of good stuff like that. And everything just got bigger and bigger and bigger from there.
Was it now playing drums? It's interesting. Drumming for a group, you're kind of like orchestrating everything in a way, and then be kind of like learning all these different aspects of it, and then the shift to like accordion to kind of fronting it. Was there like a while drumming and like learning how to back this group as it's moving through all these different situations and shows and different places, you know what I mean? Like reading crowds in small rooms compared to big rooms, compared to like rooms you can't hear yourself and then you're too loud, But
Right.
I feel like for the most part, a Zydeco band's going to be in a place where it's going to be fun and you can be loud, but there's always those weird gigs. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Can you turn it down? It's a little too loud and all that kind of stuff like that.
but through drumming for like a Zydeco group, did that kind of like unlock this music in a way that it hadn't unlocked itself to you before?
Yeah, it did. I would say with the timing, because being a drummer, you have to have at least decent timing. But the better you are with time, the better of a musician, and the better your music will sound. So being the drummer, I was able to learn timing, following the accordion. So if the accordion started the song super fast, then you had to hold it right there. If the accordion player started the song super slow, you had to hold the beat and the time right there. You couldn't move. You as the drums, you can't go past the accordion timing wise, because it just won't sound right. So, like I said, if the accordion started the song fast, if Mr. Thibodeau would have started a fast song and he wanted it fast, I would hear where he was at, and I had to stay right there. I couldn't move. As soon as I came in, you had to stay right there. You know what I'm saying? And so coming to the accordion, it definitely helped, because I can set my own tempo. Some accordion players don't play drums, so they really depend on a solid drummer with, amazing timing to kind of lock it down right there. But with me being a drummer, I could already hear where I wanted to be in my head before I even started. So I can set it how I want it. And as long as I have a drummer that is good with time, all he has to do is just follow me and just hold it right there, just the same way as I did. And then that's where the magic happens.
And it's interesting because like with my grandpa played accordion too, so I've dabbled with it a bit, and like as I get my main's guitar, so it's like a different type of approach to getting into that groove. But like with accordion, it's like almost like you're breathing in the sense with the bellows.
Yeah, the bellows is the air that pushes. It uses air to push air through the reeds. There's reed blocks on the inside of the accordion, so the bellows is what provides the air to make those reeds sing.
So like when you're when you're getting into that groove of that, like setting that tempo with the like breathe in, breathe out, breathe. It's really like kind of, even though it's not your breath, like the accordion's breath it's kind of a breath focused instrument. And I guess my question with that is like when you started to sing and play accordion, do you find yourself locking into that? It's one thing I've always wondered about, how to like sing and play said instrument. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that was an interesting thing to learn when I was learning how to do that. A lot of the older guys that I was listening to at the time, I noticed like whatever their accordion part was doing, they would sing that part. So like if the accordion pattern or accordion line was da 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 da, then they would sing that. They would make up some lyrics like and say, "Oh bye bye, oh bye bye." You know what I'm saying? They would sing what the accordion is doing. And I started off doing that, which it made sense. And it was able to, it was helpful for me to do that. So as I started going on, then I was able to kind of break away with it. So not like nowadays, you might hear an accordion part and the vocal part is completely different from the accordion part. But a lot of guys that I was listening to, that's kind of what they did, and that was a good starting part for me.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. You unify it with yourself, and you can follow the instrument. You can find your pitch. It's easier to. I guess it's kind of hard at first to do two things at once, but when they're matching, at least you're all together.
Yeah.
It's not syncopated.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a way to start. That's a start.
Did one more question on drumming. So your grandfather like came up with the double Dutch pattern or double crutch?
The double clutch.
Double clutch. It's both words put together here.
Yeah, so he was, like I said, he was a jazz drummer at first because that's what they was doing, and then when he got with Clifton, he kind of was experimenting with these different beats, and then when Clifton's longtime drummer, which was Robert St. Julia, when he came in, he kind of patterned his way after what my grandfather was doing, just as a base to see, okay, how do you back up Clifton? So those are some of the old beats that they was doing back in the day, kind of, and they call it a double clutch.
Okay.
And that's become that's the staple drum beat for Zydeco. I mean, that's it. That's the beat. There's several different beats, but that's the one that just doesn't get old. It just doesn't get old.
So like, I'm not familiar with the pattern. I've heard it listening to your record and listening to Clifton's records to get ready to talk with you, but like, is it like a sticking thing that makes it the double, or is it the duration?
It's two hits on the bass drum and one hit on the snare drum, but then there's like a ghost note on the snare drum, so it's like pop, 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 like that. But it's supposed to, like, the best way to describe it is saying the word Cocoa Puff. If you can just sit there and say Cocoa Puff, Cocoa Puff, Cocoa Puff, Cocoa Puff, that's how the drum beat is supposed to sound. Boom, boom, pop, boom, boom, pop, boom, boom, pop, Cocoa Puff, Cocoa Puff, boom, boom, pop, boom, boom, pop.
Okay. That's with drumming. That's one thing I love is there's like a mnemonic device that you can usually find to get it out.
Yeah.
That's so cool. So like,
and some people describe it also as the sound of a freight train coming like chugga 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 chugga. It's just, and when you listen to that, like that rhythm stays right there. If a train is going at a certain speed and it's just staying right there, it's gonna stay right there. It's gonna go chugga 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 chugga. You know what I'm saying? It's gonna stay right there.
That's incredible. And it's to like, so as you're drumming and like you're back in this band and you're really ingraining that pattern and finding yourself singing and playing and all like it almost seems like the perfect way to build into like leading your own band and writing your own music. But nothing's perfect. Everything happens for a reason. But so like you start diving into accordion. When do you really start trying to pick apart Clifton's music?
Well, he was kind of the one that started because I heard so much about him, with the family and everything. So I just started with that as a reference. When he played, the piano style accordion, which that was my first accordion that I was learning on, but I didn't pick it up until later. I didn't even like it at first because I couldn't pick it up. So then I went to a smaller accordion and started listening to other smaller accordion players like Boozoo Chavez and John Delafonce, and started picking up stuff like that. And then eventually found my way back to Clifton, and it just kind of started all making sense. And again, with my grandfather playing music with him, and I never got a chance to meet my grandfather, and I never got a chance to see Clifton live. So I got all these great legends that I never got a chance to experience them. It was what drew me to him. I just wanted more because I never saw him. I wanted to hear more of them. I wanted to learn more about them. You know what I mean? They just became more and more interesting to me.
So one pin, like accordions are heavy, man. Like a full size, like piano accordion on the side, those weigh on your shoulders. Like when I first started trying to mess around with them, like take it off, you're like, feel.
Oh yeah, they're not light. They're definitely not light.
But those smaller ones, those like button box and like the ones that have two notes when you pull in and pull out, that's like a whole nother set of like challenges. Like,
yes, it's a little bit different because it's diatonic. It's like a harmonic. One note is a different note on the draw, and it's the same button is a different note on the push.
Yeah.
So it's a whole different technique.
Do you mess around with the button boxes now?
Yeah, I still play them. I record a few songs with them and everything. Like I said, my influences are Clifton Chenier with the piano accordion, Rockin' Doopsie with the 3-row accordion, and the single-row accordion would be like John Delafonce, Boozoo Chavez, Bojack, these guys like that.
Okay. That's cool. I mean, like it's kind of like playing like a different size guitar or something. Once you get one really ingrained, it's fun to explore on the other.
Exactly.
And it goes back to that whole kind of like I wanted to learn more about bebop and jazz and ragtime and like the genre like appeal too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like you want to go back to the source and like see, okay, this is what inspired this person. Now I can see it.
I heard a story from another interview, or I read somewhere that you were playing on Clifton's grave and you're trying to figure out something he was doing.
Yeah. So I was having trouble learning one of his songs, and so I went to his grave. I don't know what made me do that, but went to his grave. And I just was like, okay, I guess I was doing it to kind of focus and concentrate. I guess that's why I originally wanted to do it. So I went there, and it had rained like the day before, and it was kind of, I wouldn't say flooded, but there was still kind of puddles of water around, the graveyard. So as I'm trying to figure out, one of his songs, all of a sudden, like the water around his tomb just started bubbling. So I'm like, okay, this is weird. Nothing's supposed to be breathing in there, but yeah. So, and when that happened, then I started kind of figuring out, I'm like, oh, that's what he was doing. And then it just started coming together.
That's incredible. There's like, do you remember what piece were you, or what bit of his were you trying to figure out?
It was a song. It was actually a cover song that he did from Pine Top Perkins.
Hmm.
The Pine Top Boogie Woogie is what he called it.
Okay. And is that like riffing on like a blues kind of like
Yeah,
145 thing? Yeah. Okay.
yeah, it's like a blues 145 thing, but the way he did it and the fact that he was playing his own bass pattern, and that's what was kind of tripping me up was he was playing one melody on the right hand and a completely different melody on the left hand at the same time.
Oh man.
So that's what was giving me problems.
And like because well, I guess that's for that type of playing. Starting on drums is really serendipical as well because you're working on multiple limbs, doing multiple things at the same
Yep,
time.
yep, exactly.
Um, so and one thing I noticed with his playing, there's all this blues, like really blues kind of guitar-y stuff within what he's doing, and like when I started trying to dabble with accordion, I was trying to figure out how to do blues stuff, and I found my way into Zydeco music, and my trying to transfer those skills to the accordion was a much more challenging feat than I've
Mhm.
been able to overcome. But just hearing those phrases and trying to like figure them out of something that now has like multiple keys, being like it's a piano accordion you can play in different keys as opposed to the diatonic ones and stuff. Like uh like with phrasing and stuff like that, did you aside from him, what other like kind of phrasing and like from other types of music influenced you at that early age of accordion?
I was like a sponge. I was trying to take in whatever, caught my attention. And what really still catches my attention is I try to listen to a lot of Stevie Ray Vaughan. I love the way he phrases things musically. I like the way he does it. And then, I like to draw from other styles of music. Like I even like rock and roll and heavy metal and stuff like that. Just the way certain songs and certain artists, the way they phrase things, I try to learn what they do and just take. So I would take something from like, for example, I could take like a phrasing from Stevie Ray Vaughan and a phrasing from Clifton and maybe a phrasing from Slash and try to blend all that together.
That's sick. I mean, like, that's music. That's what it is finding those bits and putting them together. Because I was trying to,
Yeah,
I think I read Clifton, like, he took a lot from, like, Lightning Hopkins and,
Lightning
like,
Hopkins, what's the other guy made Choo 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 Boogie?
um,
Jordan, I think something.
yeah, it'll come back to me. It'll come back to me when we hang up the phone.
Yeah, yeah. And stuff like that. So yeah, he took a lot of different phrases, and that was, what influenced him. And of course, everybody hears music differently, but learning where he got his influences from. I went back to his sources, stuff like that, and then I'm like, okay, well, what influences me? So of course, in my era, I'm an '80s baby, so we got a lot of different influences happening throughout the '80s, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and like I said, I'm a big Guns N' Roses fan, so I'm kind of taking different things like that and just, mixing everything up and just that's how I come up with my style.
Was it, that's, I mean, I get it, to play at the grave of someone like that and, like, to like, kind of hyper focus in on it. Like I think that's like metaphorically and like what we kind of do is we play off these shoulders of people that have come before and try to figure out them and then in turn figure out us. And like
Exactly.
that's such a beautiful story. So I appreciate you rehashing it with me.
Oh, no problem, no problem. Yeah, because when I wanted to learn, of course, Clifton is gone already, so I couldn't go to him and say, okay, Mr. Clifton, can you show me how to? Because he wasn't there, right? And there's still not too many people that play his music close to him. There's only like a small handful of people that still do it. So that's kind of what made me do that. I'm like, okay, let me go to his grave and really just 100% focus, concentrate, and see if I could figure this out. And that's kind of what drove me to do that.
Um, so to kind of bounce it to this new record is your first one all in French, right?
Well, it's all in a Creole dialect,
Okay.
not really French. There are some similarities to French, but it's a Creole dialect that my family speaks. My dad and everybody on his side of the family speaks. It's called Couri,
Mm.
and it's a different Creole than how they would speak in another section of Louisiana, like say around the Eunice area, which is more north, not too far north, but it's more north than Parks. Parks is kind of more southeast, I want to say something like that. And in that area, that's the area that they spoke, and that's what my ancestors spoke. That's what my family speaks. And I was a part of that generation in the '80s where they didn't want the kids to understand, what was going on. Which it's bad. It was bad for the culture because there was a whole world of people that didn't get a chance to learn their native tongue, and that's why it's lost today. There's only a handful of people that still speak that. So that's kind of what makes me want to learn how to speak it, and not only speak it but be able to read and write it. My cousin Herbert Wiltz, he's helping me to read and write it at the same time as I'm learning. So that's my journey right now, is to learn my ancestors' language.
That's so cool though. Like have you found is it easier to speak it compared to read and write it?
Actually, it helps me personally to be able to see it. It clicks a little bit more. I mean, I could ask, how to say this, how to say that. But if I can hear it and then write it at the same time, because it's like you're hearing it, you're looking at it, and you're reading it, you're writing it, you're doing all this at one time. It helps me um, better to learn that way.
To ingrain it, yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense because now you're stimulating multiple sensory input for this complete new language. Um,
Exactly.
and I also think as a musician, you kind of you pattern recognition and like delivering like different like expressions of stuff like languages. I think neurologically click a little easier for musicians because you're
Mhm.
kind of like dabbling in it all the time and doing all this type of pattern recognition, but it still doesn't make it easy. Like um, one thing like reading through what Howard sent to me that really stuck out because of that is have you found like any like reoccurring idioms that were said a lot in this specific dialect?
Yeah, because it's not really a complete foreign language for me. I've heard it growing up, and so it's easier for me than somebody that has never heard it before. But I could understand. It's like I could understand a little bit more than I could speak, which is kind of frustrating. It's like I can get the idea of what's going on. I might not understand or pick up every word because a lot like my dad, that was their first language. So when they speak it, they're flying through it, right? They're talking fast, fast, fast.
Yeah.
And for me, I mean, you could talk English fast to me and I won't catch it. That's just me. That's just how I operate. If you speak English too fast, I'll be like, what? But I can get the idea, the overall idea, but I'm trying to get it to where I can understand each word. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
Each note makes sense where it's falling here. Each word that like um the meaning's clear to it. That's like, and I guess that's like the building blocks of that.
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah. And I kind of put too much pressure on myself because I want it so bad. It's like, no,
yeah,
I gotta know how you say this. What's the proper way of saying? What's the proper way? And like everybody's saying, I'm like, okay, they're telling me, okay, look, don't put so much pressure on yourself on how to speak proper Kudivini, proper Creole, because they were like, watch this. They said, right now we're speaking English, and I'm like, yeah, but we're not speaking all the time proper English, but you understand what I'm saying, right? I'm like, yeah. It's like, so like, okay, so it's the same thing.
yeah. Oh man.
Like we don't
Yeah.
we don't speak proper English all the time. I mean, there's different slangs that we use to, cut through subjects and this and that, but we still understand what we're talking about.
Right. Well, and to compare it to like music, you want to learn the rules so then in which you can break them.
Yeah.
Like I want to know that I'm adding a tritone here because it's not what you want to hear, but it's going to lead to it. Like I only know that because knowing the right way to end it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Same thing. Exactly.
So I get that. I get that mentality for sure. So writing this album with this, like as far as like building narratives and stuff, how was that process? Like, was it easier than you thought, or was it more challenging?
It was a little more challenging because the language has a different cadence than English. Obviously, each language is going to flow differently. So being able to make it fit in the right, time signature and beats and stuff like that, which I thought that was pretty cool because I'm so used to writing in English to where I can do it without thinking about it now. So like now I have to like go back to putting my thinking cap on. You know what I'm saying? Because like there's songs that we could play that if you sing in English would sound good rhythmically, but then if you switch it to another language, it might throw the timing off. So you got to figure out a way to say what you're saying in a different way to make it match with the rhythm, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. Because like we naturally talk in some type of cadence, and like we write in that way too. Poetry's written in that way, lyrics are written in that way, and like definitely, I think that's represented within the music that language is using. Like we got a lot of 4/4 in English. You know what I mean? Like, but like, so what time signatures and like what kind of pattern? Like, is there a new one that really stuck out that you found yourself using more in this record then, or was
it really just depends on the melody.
Okay?
I always start with. It seems like to me, I always start with a melody. Something that I'm like, that sounds cool. That sounds interesting. And then from there, I kind of just hold on to that melody. I kind of jot it down, and I just let that kind of simmer for a little while. And then later on, an idea will come up in my head. Okay, we could say this in Creole, and that would match with that. So it takes me a little bit longer than it would in English, only because it's new to me. But that's where I start from. It really just depends on the melody.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, because that's the whole phrase. That's like the sentence of the song.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool. Man, this new record's it's incredible, and I really enjoyed getting to dive into your past records leading up to it.
Well, thank you.
And I really appreciate your time today and rescheduling, because I know last weekend got a little wonky with the emails.
Oh, yeah.
I have one more kind of question. It could be a throwaway question, or maybe it can mean something, but I also heard and or read that you're into wrestling.
Yeah.
So, is there like through your journey as a musician, as an entertainer in multiple different facets, behind the band, in front of the band, responding to the emails, doing the press, doing the recordings, all the paperwork that goes in. For you, do you see a similarity between a musical career and a wrestling career?
Yeah, a little bit. It's like, so here's a good example. So you know how wrestling is. Like when you watch wrestling, there's always the bad guy versus the good guy. There's a storyline right there. So Bojack and Boozoo did this in the early 90s, and it worked just like at the wrestling shows. They set this. It was a fake feud, right? But the people thought it was real. They would go around, they would talk smack about each other publicly and this and that. They would write songs about each other, stuff like that. And then everybody's like, oh, did you hear what Boozoo said? Or, oh, did you hear what Bojack said about Boozoo and this and that? And so then what they started doing, they built that up. Then what they started doing, they started having these battle of the bands. And even with that, they were saying, "Oh, I'm gonna tear you up this weekend. You ain't gonna make it." Just like the wrestling business. And then when the day came, the people were so amped up, just like at a wrestling show, at WrestleMania or something like that. They flooded the building. There was so many people there to see that, and they really thought that Bojack and Buzu didn't like each other, when really they just set it up like a wrestling event.
Yeah.
And the place was packed. They sold merchandise. They sold all the food. They sold all the drinks, the liquor, and they kept on doing it. They said, "All right, we're gonna do a rematch. All right, we're gonna do another rematch." And they just kept doing it, and people just started loving it. So yeah, there's definitely a connection with that. I mean, I witnessed that.
Yeah. Did you have
and,
a
and it's funny because all the while people are like, "Man, y'all need to be friends in this," but all the while, when the gig or the show was over with, Bojack and Buzu was laughing in the back, counting all that money they just made.
That's amazing. That's awesome. There's something so into the human psyche, the I'm on team A, team B thing, that in that way is done in such a fun and like inspiring, like, you know what I mean? Like in the right way, it brings everyone up. So that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a recipe that works, obviously.
Have you thought about putting together a fake battle of the bands?
I haven't really thought about it. Those times are a little bit different now. People's mentalities now are a little bit different than what it was back then. So even to do that, I mean, you'd have to find somebody that understands that this is just a marketing scheme. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Some people are kind of sensitive nowadays. You know, people might actually start believing, "Oh, he don't like me." So now, I don't know. We'll see.
Well, and also, because so much of marketing is like, "Oh, it's coming from me. This is me, honest me." You know what I mean? Like, so much marketing is that, which is cool, but also can't lead the smackdowns.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the wrestling business is still, going strong. So that recipe still works because, that's just how it works.
Yeah. And one other question, I'll let you go, man. So like Clifton, he got his first big hit was like a cover of like, right? So like adding the Zydeco flavor to other music. Have you thought about doing that with like Guns N' Roses?
I actually did, just for kind of like, experimental purposes. I re-recorded Sweet Child of Mine. I didn't put it out anywhere. Of course, there's a lot of legal things that go with that. So I didn't do nothing I just did it just for fun. I just recorded it, and I just put it up on YouTube just so people can hear it. You know what I'm saying? But I do have a version of Sweet Child of Mine on YouTube, and I did another one from Sade, The Sweetest Taboo.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So, so I like to do all kind of stuff.
That's awesome. Yeah, through my fumblings, I didn't find those two, but now I'm going to check that out. Well, Corey,
you can look for that.
Corey, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really enjoyed digging into your music.
Yo, Spike Spiegel here. You just listened to Zig At The Gig podcast. Keep riding the bebop. See you, Space Cowboy. Bang.